Your life.
And dance with my mother and me, and then spin me around till I fell asleep. Then up the stairs he would carry me, and I knew for sure I was loved. If I could.
Hello everyone, this is AC, your host at the Sunday Show. Today we are bringing you the second edition of a 4-part series on men's health, where we've been looking at the mind, the body, and the soul. And today we are focusing on fatherhood and relationship with their children. Welcome everyone. If you're just joining in, our guest today we have Harry Fon Akatres Katos, we have Ivy Bingwa, we have Dr. Ako Tabeta, and we have Cham Fomikum. Welcome everyone. And thank you so much for honoring our invite. We are guests on the show today. So today we are talking about fatherhood and relationship. And we've got fathers in the studio. We've got fathers, a father to be, or I don't know when that will happen, but I know one day he's going to be a father. And we have a mom on the show as well. Thank you once more. And thank you guys for joining in. This is AC, your host at the Sandy Show. At the Sandy Show, we give a voice to those issues which most often people consider them as taboo, and people don't find them. People think it's very uncomfortable to talk about these issues, and most often we shut down. We don't talk about them, but giving a voice to the issues and to some of the challenges which we have faced, we have the chance to heal ourselves, heal others. We have the chance to save a life and also to change a life. And so June is Men's Health Month. And this same June, we celebrated Father's Day. It's so unfortunate that on Father's Day is not as well celebrated as Mother's Day or Women's Day are being celebrated. But giving a voice to these days, to men's issues, and giving a voice to Father's Day and make it in a way that we have to start celebrating it same as we celebrate Women's Day, same as we celebrate Mother's Day, it's going to make a difference. And having fathers here, having a son here, having a mom here as well for us to talk about these issues. Some of the issues why you have fathers who are present but actively absent in the lives of their children. What may be the causes of this? You have fathers who live in the same house with children, but they are not involved. They don't have that bond with their children. Unfortunately, some children are growing up today without the fathers, maybe because of bereavement and other issues. We are going to look into all of this. We are also thinking of fathers like George Floyd, who lost his life in the US, and so many other fathers who have lost their lives or who died in the past years. And today we will be thinking about them as well. So I'm going to hand over for a brief introduction to Dr. Ako. Would you like to start with the introduction, please? Just a brief introduction to yourself.
Hello, AC, and hello to everybody on this panel with me, and hello to everyone who is watching. I am Dr. Ako Tabeta. I work in the field of mental health, where I coordinate a program at 65 Massachusetts Avenue, a day treatment program in Washington, D.C. I'm a father of a 26-year-old son. That will come as a surprise to many. And also, I've been a father to many children out there without being their biological father, in terms of our African culture, which I would like to emphasize for the sake of this program. And I'm really privileged to be here. I'm also a multi-award-winning Afrobeat artist. Surprise, yeah. long story. And I must confess that I'm very honored to be on this platform to talk about the father and the relationship with the children. Thank you, AC.
Hi, over to you, Chan. Brief
Hi,
introduction.
good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, John.
My name is Cham, and I'm not a father yet. Hopefully, that day is coming.
I hear
But
you, John.
I'm going to join this conversation to talk from the perspective of, first of all, a son, not just a child, but a son, and then a prospective father. It's important to not talk from the perspective of a child only, but from a perspective of a son, because sons get to model their parents. And so bad fatherhood breeds bad characteristics on the son, who in turn replicates it in society, and the circle just becomes unending. So I'll be looking at our conversation today from the angle of a son who has had a father and who hopes to be a father as well.
Thank you so much. Ivy, over to you, the mom.
Right. Can I just check that you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Great.
You're welcome.
So I am Ivy Bingwa, and just a little bit about me. I am a teacher, and I teach children from ages of 11 to 18. So I am not just going to be talking as a mom here. I have my own children. I've got 3 lovely, amazing children between the ages of 6 and 14. And I'm not just going to be talking as a mom, but I am going to be talking as someone who works with children and sees so many characteristics of children who have come through education without either with or without the influence of a father. I am also mind transformation and development coach. I coach mostly women at the moment and children. So I am talking from a capacity. I see children mainly on a daily basis, really. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Ivy. Over to you, Harry.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this platform. It's a lot of amazing people um, that I know or I would soon get to know. I'm Harry. Most people know me on Facebook as Tres Kebab. I consider myself a social activist for men's rights. I advocate hard for men's equality, men's right, and as well as for women's equality and women's rights. I fancy myself an egalitarian. I'm a father of 4 kids. I consider myself a social activist for men's rights. Just turned 14. She's a beautiful girl, tall like me, almost soon to be 5 foot. And I just recently had a baby. So I'm in between a 14-year-old and a 8-month-old. So, and in between that, there's still 2 more. So I'm a father, activist, and everything in between.
Thank you so much. And thank you once more, guys, for watching. If you are watching, this is a brilliant show today, and we are going to learn and we will unlearn. As I always say, every day is a new day and every day is a learning day. So you share and invite your friends to watch, and we all are going to learn today from fathers. And mind you, a father or a dad must not necessarily be a biological father. Thank you once more, guys, for watching. So it may be somebody who plays that role. We all know that not all fathers have the level of involvement they'd like to have in their children's lives. Whatever it is, it may be due to circumstances or some other factors. Some fathers haven't yet stepped into their role as important nurturing influences in their children's lives. There may be reasons for that, which we are going to look into. What makes some fathers more likely to be involved than others? We are going to look at that as well. There are a number of factors from a research which I read online today. These factors determine a father's success in a child's life. And this can actually be the father's own upbringing, including relationship of the father with his own parents. It can also be the father's cultural history or cultural background, his biological history, maybe mental illness, alcoholism, or health. Also, there are some characteristics like age, employment, personality. All these factors can actually influence the success of a man being a father in a child's life. So, as we've all known or we've all heard before, that fathers have a crucial role to play in the lives of children. And it is often said, I've heard this several times. Sometimes I actually wonder what's the difference. It is often said that anyone can be a father, but it takes someone special to be a dad. So the term father and the term dad might have the same meaning to a lot of people, but it is actually different as time has evolved. So a father is supposed to be there in their children's life, to be able to provide their needs. But what do we do? So who actually is a father and who actually is a dad? I will just choose a random. Doctor, you come in. As a
Yeah.
dad of a 26-year-old, I know you have a wealth of experience as far as this is concerned. So who do you think, in your own words, is a father and who is a dad? Because there seems to be a difference between the two. What do you think?
Yeah, a father is often. Thank you, AC, for that question. A father is oftentimes um, understood to be a biological father. In terms of that father, that's where we go as strict as that can go. But um, a dad, a dad, a dad is someone who is not just a biological father, but is somebody who is a parent to this child in terms of being there for the child and modeling that child's character so that that child can conform to societal norms and challenges that life faces. Being there for that child, to see the child grow and see the child express and manifest many things which they will otherwise not do to in other cycles, which could be acceptable, but the dad can accept those things and still guide the child to such a place where that child can feel comfortable enough to get out there, and be productive. As a dad, I discovered one thing, and I would like to share. I like to share from experiences, from things that happen, in as much as I stay within the narrow confines of definitions of important issues and terms. And I want to say, when my son was coming from Cameroon, he was in his first year in University of Boya, and when was coming to the United States, I knew I was prepared to be there for him, not just as a father and as a dad. A dad is going to spend time with his son who comes. I was leader of several communities. As we know, we're in the United States, you are a community, this community, and that and that. I stepped down from all those leadership roles so I can be a dad to my son. It was more important for me to be a dad to my son than to be out there in public being president of that and all that group and that group, because I did believe that I was going to mold a young man to become a leader tomorrow. So I was not going to jeopardize the interest of that young man to the detriment of him being a great man, because I want to be out there and hold several functions in society. So that dad was going to be there for that young man who came, make sure that he got his first job, make sure that he goes to school, make sure that, I bought his first soccer cleats, make sure that I got his keyboard, because make sure that I love everything he loves and I try to embrace everything that he relates to, because he was going to come into a strange culture. He was coming to a strange place. He was coming to a place which he did not understand. There was going to be a cultural shock, because the United States of America is not Africa. So me, that's what I believe a dad to be. A dad is going to be there for that child. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Ivy, as a
Yeah.
mom, can you hear me? Okay. As a
Yeah, I can
mom,
hear you.
yeah, as a mom, as a wife, and also as a teacher, like you clearly mentioned that you are a teacher, but you somehow play the role of a parent to your student. What are your experiences as far as being a teacher, being a mom? At times, as a woman, we are moms to our children and also to our partners, our husbands. What is
Oh
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of my experiences, I'm just gonna talk as a mom first. In terms of my experiences as a mom, I do find that my own children, let me talk from experience as well. My
Mhm.
own children tend to play up a little bit more when they know that daddy is not as involved as he should be.
Mhm.
Now, when I talk about play up, sometimes they will answer back, sometimes they will just be moody, they will not get on with what they are meant to be doing, simply because they know that, you know, it's just me and I think in a way they are seeking that attention by playing up.
Mhm.
Now, that is even more pronounced in schools because on a day-to-day basis, I mentor about 28 to 30 children who are in my care on a day-to-day basis. In as much as I teach about 150 of them in a day, I mentor about 28 of them. I follow them up every single day. I see them every single day and I talk to them. And I found that the children who had their fathers actively involved in their lives. When I talk of actively involved, I mean fathers who would turn up for maybe soccer games, let me call it like the Americans, father who would turn up for football games, who would turn up to school meetings, especially parent evenings. If the fathers did not turn up for parent evenings, which they happen like 3 to 4 times each year, so they are not frequent, but that is the moment where the parents come and sit face to face with all the teachers that teach their children. And parents who did not turn up, especially when fathers did not turn up. When fathers do not turn up for these meetings, it turns out to be the children are not as serious in school. Now, when I talk of not as serious, they do not take their studies seriously. And secondly, they start to misbehave in school. Their behavior is not always 100% in line with expectations of the school. And often, when you talk to these children, like I had about two of them that I would talk to them on a day to day basis, and they'll say, oh, dad doesn't care, anyways. Why should I behave myself when he doesn't care? Why should I do this when he doesn't? Why should I get involved in my studies when he doesn't care? And so for me, it was taking that role as a mentor to these children, which means the presence of the father is actively key in molding the child. Like my brother said earlier, if the father is not there, there are certain things, especially when it comes to discipline, there are certain things that the mother would struggle. And when I talk about here the father, like you said earlier, AC, every man can be a father, but not every man can be a dad. Because the act of, if I just go back to my teaching, the act of fathering a child is, providing the sperm that actually eventually makes that, fertilizes the egg, which means every man can provide a sperm, but not every man can sit there and change diapers and have those late nights and do that. So, from my experience, both at home and at work, children who have their fathers actively present in their lives, they definitely do perform much, much better in school. And they also do behave much better in school as well.
Thank you so much, Ivy, for that brilliant explanation. Harry, over to you. Being a dad to girls, yeah. How is that experience?
It's an amazing experience. But I have to touch on a few things. This narrative of anyone, because when you said it, I had to write it down because it was just driving me crazy. Anyone can be a father, but not anyone can be a dad. See, things like that are things that just set me off flame, right? Just set me off. What does this statement mean? Like, what does it really mean? Anybody can be a father, but not everyone. See, this is a Western construct, right? in Cameroon, in Bamenda, in Southwest, there's no father, there's no dad, there's papa, right? How do you
Yeah.
then distinguish who is a father and who is a dad in a society like that where there's only papa?
Mm-hmm.
So then in the West, we have father, the person who donated the sperm, and then the person who pays the bills, the person who attends the child's PTA meetings, the person who goes to the football, soccer game, ballet dances, the person who lets the child does makeup on them is the dad. So then we start to categorize men. There's not a saying like this for women. Are we saying that every woman is deemed good enough to be a mother because she birthed a child? No. So we cannot have all of these constructs that say this man is just a father and this one is a dad. We all have a role. So it's a responsibility for us to, if you have a child, to be a father. I don't want to be distinguished. I don't want to be a dad and I don't want to be a father. I just want to be a responsible man that has children and takes care of the children. And my advocacy, part of my plan is teach men that it's your responsibility, that if you brought this child to the world, you have to take care of it. Who should take care of your child? But I don't want to put you in a class that because you do what you need to do, you should get a cookie called daddy. You know, you should get an extra token that should clap for you that because you're going to your child's PTA meeting, you attend all of these things, then you have migrated to a class of a dad. That for me just is irritating, right? And that's part of the problem when we have Father's Day. Everybody's saying, "Oh, everybody can make a baby, but not everybody can be a father, a dad." I'm a father. My kids call me dad. They as well just called me papa. I have tried. I have tried. God knows that they should call. I don't. I guess they're American kids. You could say that, but I would love if they call me papa or if they call their mother mama. Like I instinctively do things like that to say mama, say don't say mom, don't say mommy or all of these Western things or daddy or all of that stuff, right? Say something that stands to because my African American friends some say mom, some say mama, some say dad, some say well they mostly say dad, but they mostly say mama. And I like mama, right? Because it takes that whole mom and it's all westernized to me and it irritates me. So for me, I have a problem with as a father and there's a dad, and the dad is the responsible one. Man, the dad is the man that has filled the void that was left by the father. I have a problem with things like that, and I think we should focus on the man and his responsibilities as a leader, as a person who's driving the narrative. That's my own part about all of this stuff.
That's perfectly put. Thank you so much. Which is one of the reasons why we have to give a voice to such issues, because nowadays it seems some men are just there to donate the sperm which they're supposed to donate, and then they bail out, they go. But to me personally, a father, a dad, or papa, or whatever we want to call it, to me they are the same thing. To it all depends on how you are related to them. I, for one, I've got two people in my life that I look up to as fathers. They've played a father figure in my life, and I will always treat them as my dads, including so many others. But so let's move on to Charm. Charm, what do you think? This issue of a father and a dad. What is your experience? What do you think exactly?
Uh, Hi. Really, I think that the contention over what to call it is really derailing the point which I think that this conversation is really supposed to be about, because like Stress said, these are Western ideas and people need to come to understandings, you know.
Yep.
In my opinion, families are unique. If an African man or Cameroonian goes to America or to Canada or to the UK and wants to, you know, usurp the culture of where he is and behave the way he is, the way the people there behave, that's his choice.
Yeah.
if you decide to take up the gender expectations of your society, that's your choice. As long as you have an understanding with your spouse and with your kids, and you bring up a home in that sense. But it's also your choice, and it is not necessarily wrong if you want to live in America and maintain a typically African cultural home. It's also your choice to decide to maintain the gender expectations as well that pertain to your culture. And this understanding has to be between, in my opinion, between the man and the woman, and whatever they decide. But the issues about anyone can, in Africa, there is a saying, in Cameroon, in our communities, there's a saying that Pikin na village get am. So if you want to go by that, how many dads do children over there have? Here we have an organized system of adoption where you can say you're adopting kids, but back in Africa, I think we have higher rates of adoption. We just don't call it adoption. We don't follow the processes. I don't know a single home growing up where 2 or 3 kids from that home were people whom the parents just brought from the village, and they grew up as brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Would you now make such demarcations, dad, papa, father, and all those things? So it depends really on the cultural environment where we are, and on our choices as individuals. On a personal note, my dad, we used to call him daddy, and it doesn't really matter, but that's what we call him, and he's everything that a dad should be. From childhood to when I mean, I can't speak for people who grew up without a dad, but I think that even as most psychologists have said it, positive social character in children is boosted up when they have a concrete male figure in the house who provides that mental and physical and even financial protection and provision for the needs of the household.
Yeah. Oh, that's good, Cham. That's very brilliantly explained. Thank you so much. Ivy, I'm aware of your time, so I'll come back. I'm coming to you now. It probably goes without saying that fathers who play an active role in raising their kids lighten the load of their partners. But research is still not very, very clear about this. So it says women who are emotionally supported by their husbands feel better. They have better pregnancies, births, breastfeeding experiences, and have better postpartum mental health. What do you guys feel about it? Ivy, I would like you to touch at this point, because I know that being a father or being a dad, however we want to call it, it does not the role that you have to play in your child's life does not only have to start when that baby is physically there in your arms. It starts. I mean, I should even say it starts during conception, or even before preconception. So that's when the father's role actually is supposed to start. Ivy, I would like you to touch this to explain more about this, because I'm conscious of your time as well. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to say, first of all, I do appreciate that I'm on the show. I really like to talk about topics like this. And even if I leave, please, that my brothers who are on the show, behind the scenes, I would really love to, collaborate with you guys on one thing or another. But then, coming back to your question, AC, normally, this issue of the father wound, I think um, I felt it myself. Personally, I lost my dad when I was about 13 or 14 or thereabouts. And for me, after that, I did not understand what it meant mourning. Like, I grew up in a typical African home. We used to call my dad Ta. Okay. And we also believe that the community were in charge or responsible for bringing up the children. But then I only had to I got to understand the absence of my dad. I got to feel the absence of my dad much later on. That was about a few years ago. I'm even saying much later on, like 20 years after more than 20 years even after my dad had passed on. And then that was when I felt the brunt. At some point, I felt like there was something missing. And when I started reflecting, there was one evening I just sat there and bawled my eyes out because I just could not understand what was missing from, from me, let me say so. And I got to understand that, at some point in time, I did not mourn the passing of dad. I did not process that because of my age at the time. I was too young. I did not understand what that meant. I went straight back to school. But when we talk about fathers being present even from conception, now relationally, if a man is in a relationship with a woman, that man is in that relationship to provide, you know, relationally, they should be able to provide at least some emotional support to each other. Some whatever happens, at least the emotional support should be there. And if it happens that the woman then becomes pregnant, pregnancy is quite a trying period for a woman, especially the first 3 months. The first few months of pregnancy, they are quite trying. My 3 pregnancies, the first few months, I cut out meat, fish, most proteins from my diet just because I could not stomach them. And if I did not have that emotional support, I'm not sure what might have happened to my babies at the time. Okay, so the emotional and mental stability of the woman is really key when she is pregnant. And obviously, in as much as I believe that people's happiness is not determined by or should not be determined by others. However, if you are in a partnership, at least there should be that emotional support there. So the role of the father is to provide emotional support, okay, during that time of pregnancy to avoid things like stress. I am sure Dr. Ako would agree with me that during pregnancy, or he may talk more about this. During pregnancy, a woman needs to be stress free because there are certain things that could happen that could go wrong if the woman is pregnant and is going through a stressful time. And then when baby is born, the first few months, I went through postpartum depression myself. And I understand exactly how much support I needed at that time. Unfortunately, my husband was not around. He traveled for work soon after the baby was born. So that meant here in the UK, men get just 2 weeks of um, paternity leave. And he had to go back into work and then eventually traveled out of the country. So I needed that support, and there was no one there. So, in as much as that emotional support, he provided it for me as much as he could, but his physical presence, I needed that as well. So, for me, I believe that if a woman gets, obviously the baby as well, if the mother after birth gets that emotional support, then she can breastfeed her baby. She can get that emotional support and eventually be able to breastfeed her baby properly. Because, that time, the hormonal changes that were happening on the inside of me, I did not even understand. And that was not my first child, mind. I had my first child in Cameroon. That was not even my first child. And that emotional roller coaster that was going on inside of me, it really did knock me down. And so I still go back to the fact that in as much as I do appreciate our men, and I believe that they are getting a lot of negative kind of vibe on the internet, on the media at the moment. But I also believe that there is room for growth, there is room for education to happen so that our men can become the best versions of themselves. And there is room for education for women as well. But since we're talking about fathers, the one thing that I will encourage our men to do as fathers is to go on and seek out how to grow as parents, as fathers. Because I know that more often than not, let me talk about my home, my husband. There are things that I would love for him to do as a dad that he does not necessarily understand how to do those things, or why, or even he does not even know that he should be doing those things. And that is because from the upbringing that he had in Cameroon, he did not have that. So I think that there is room for education to start to talk. Topics like these are really important. Shows like yours, AC, they are really key, that we're starting to talk about things like these and just shine the light on them, so that men can start to actively seek to develop their own knowledge about how to be the best dads that they could be. I don't know if that answers your question. I know I've probably rambled, but
That's okay, Ivy. Thank you so much. So, in a nutshell, sometimes the role of a father can differ depending on where they are in the Western world or back in Africa, and also depending on our cultural backgrounds as well. So at times, for a dad or for a father to actively carry out his role as a parent or as a father, they they also need a push from us, the women as well. And moving on, I know that some fathers are actively present in the lives of their children, while others are actively present but absent. What I mean by this is there are some parents who stay with their children, maybe because of work commitment. They are not actually they are not there when the children need them. Like you mentioned about some dads not being able to attend parents' evening. What are some of the
yeah.
factors that will make a dad or a father not present in the life of their children, even though they are actively present, physically present? But Harry, can I come to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a interesting question. Why are some parents in the life but not they cannot the children don't feel them, as opposed to the ones that are actively present and the kids actually feel them. I'll probably use again a lot of African homes, like Ivy said. There are things that she wants her husband to do, but the culture upbringing of him, mine, my culture upbringing. I grew up in a house where um, I saw a lot of hand. My dad was a lot of. My dad was hands off. There was no him sitting with me and we going over my assignment. I mean, he was a disciplinarian. When I tried to play soccer, football, that's when I felt my dad's presence. And actually, I actually think that he hindered my soccer growth. That notwithstanding, um, I think it's a culture thing, right? In Africa, the father's role is probably just to work and make and pay the bills for those who actually do, and the mother's role is to nurture the home, right? She's a nurturer. She's a. It's just recently where women have been empowered, which is the right thing to do, and they have to work. Now the woman
Mhm.
cannot work and nurture the home, raise the kids like we used to do when she was a stay-at-home mom. In this country, in America, you do have stay-at-home moms that do that, and then the father is also hands off. But in the case where the mother is working and the father is working, it's imperative. It's just, it's. I mean, you don't think about it. It's not. When I cannot have a friend. I cannot have a circle of friend if I'm involved in my kid's life and you're not telling me about your kids. What did your son do? What did your daughter do? I don't associate with those kind of friends, right? And you have things like father daughter dance for those of us who have daughters. I don't know if there's a father son dance for people who have sons. I don't know, but for a guy with girls, we have those kind of things. I would drive this country to take my daughters to any of those kind of things, right? Because for me, they are happy, I'm happy, and it's so important that I see the happiness in my kids. I live for that happiness. And when I see a man who doesn't value that, then I have a problem. Me and you would have a problem, right? In terms of, I don't think that you understand the very fundamental of having children, right? And like Ivy said and other people said, education is key. It's not to just shout insults or fight. It's about to say, listen, it is very important that you are in your child's life. They want you to be in your child's life. I grew up with a dad who was in my life, but at the same time, I feel like he was not in my life. You understand? And maybe from that, instead of me saying that, oh, my relationship with my dad is a lot different, I decide to put my relationship with my kids something that I did not have. You understand? I saw my dad every day till when I became an adult and left the house. But there's not a day that there's a decision in my house about my kids that I don't have an influence on, right? From when they go to the doctors, from when they attend PTA, from everything about them, I have to be involved in it. And I think that that's the education that every other man should should be. But what we are getting is the stigma, it's the insults, the attack. And when you do that, men retreat because men become radicalized. Every time you attack people, they get radicalized more. They don't come closer to you. But once you educate them that it's important that your child wants you to be in their life. I have a daughter that I'm not really in her life, and that's the biggest disappointment. That breaks my heart so many different ways because I find myself having to overcompensate every time that she calls me because I don't have the control that I need to have around her. So because I don't have that, then I'm overcompensating because I feel like if I don't do these things, I would probably lose her. You understand? And these are things that are beyond my control, right? Um, I had her when I was a single guy. Now I'm married. I have kids in my marriage. These ones are within my control. So we must take all of these factors, and we keep talking about research. We need to or studies. Let's talk about that for a little second.
Okay.
I don't know any study that has been done in Africa on issues like this. All of these studies are Western studies that don't take us into account, right? These are Western studies done for families in the West, in America, in the UK, wherever.
Hmm.
But we use these studies as benchmarks for African families that grew up disorganized or dysfunctional or in different variation. Let me not use dysfunctional as if it was a bad thing. You cannot use a study like that on me, right?
Hmm.
Because it's not applicable for me. You have to do my own study that's reflected for me. Ivy said she grew up in an African household. I grew up in a typical African. I'm raising my kids in a typical African household. I don't want them eating no Western. They eat achu, they eat fufu, they eat. That's it. It's a Western house, but they're raised like African kids, right? So you cannot use that kind of study. For me, it's going to give you false positives that are not typical. And the doctor, I don't know if he's a psychologist or this is his domain, should be able to highlight, clarify me better. But when you use those kind of studies on people like me and Ivy and the doctor and you and Cham to be soon to be father, I think they give you false positive results because we live in the West, our upbringings are different, and we're going to give you different outputs of what you're expecting because we're conflicted between Western and African cultures. And so you're getting different output as opposed to if you go to my neighbor who's a white guy and do the same study on him, right? So it is important that we as men, it should be education. It's important that we should be, if you made a child, it's not a question. It's not even up for debate. It's your sole responsibility to take care of that child. We're not asking you, it's not we're not saying please, it's no, it's your responsibility. So, but it comes to with teaching because where I came from, the man was hands off. But times have changed. Man needs to be hands on now. And so, but it takes us women, all of you have done some kind of education. Ivy, I keep going to her because she has said a lot of impressive things. She says she teaches women exclusively, but there's no program for men. There's nowhere where men go to learn how to reprogram themselves, right? So we need these programs. We need this kind of educational seminars. We need this kind of talks to re-engineer the man's brain that it's no more that kind of hands-off mentality. We need you to be part of the process now.
Thank you so much. That's so brilliant. Thank you so much. One of the things I've learned from what you've said, Harry, is we need to do. There need to be a research on things like this, on fathers and their involvement in their children's life, but focus on African homes because experiences are being taken in the West and kind of force them on our upbringing back home. For one, I grew up in a typical African home. My dad, I grew up with him till the age of 8, and my parental responsibility was taken over by my elder sister and the husband who at me, like in every sense of it, they are my first parents, though not biologically. So I always look up to them, even when my my husband's people came to see my parents. I took them first to my elder sister and the husband because that's where I grew up. Even now in my home as a married woman, there are so many things I think of. I think back, and most often I remember what my second dad taught me. I remember when he tells me, Clarice, you need to learn how to iron a man's trousers. You need to place it this way so it should not have double lines, because one day you will get married and you will have to help your husband to do such things. You need to know how to cook as a woman. So sometimes when I stand in that kitchen, I remember some of the things he used to tell me, and I will be like, oh my God, he's just nagging. But I must tell you, the presence of a dad or a father, whether biological or not biological, is very, very important in a child's life. And I actually remember when he used to teach me about my menstrual period. Yes, he was the one who started even before my mom. So a dad is very, very important. And again, on this show, we aim at educating, we aim at raising awareness on these issues which most often we don't talk about. And this is just one of the issues, because us women, we've learned how to talk. We've learned how to share our stories with one another, which somehow, in the process of sharing, we also learn and we also help to educate others. But our men, unfortunately, they they also have their own way of putting across their own stories or their own experiences, but not in the way that us women do. So we need more men, we need more guys, Dr. Ako, Harry, Cham, and so many others. Sometimes this voice has to be started by one of you. Sometimes you need to come together and give these issues a voice, then you'll be pushed. So going to over to our next question. Dr. Ako, there was a time I was discussing with you, and you said there's a difference between a daughter who learns how to dance from who learns her dance steps from her dad, from her father, as compared to a daughter who learns her dance steps from a boyfriend. I really want you to talk more about this, because this is really interesting. And can you throw more light on this? And also, Cham, after Dr. Aku, I would also like you to talk a bit more about this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, AC, and thank you, Trust Actors. Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Cham, for making this so interesting. Yes, we got talking, AC, and I was sharing that, because it's all about human behavior. Everything that we do in life comes from something that we learned in the past. So our attitudes, our actions are dictated by stuff that we got from the past growing up. A father is so important because we've already mentioned different what father is. We've talked about the role of a father, dad, in the life of children, providing that emotional support, providing that physical support and the security, setting the pace, for the way the child is going to behave in life, which is important for the child's emotional well-being, for the child's, cognitive function. It can affect the child's cognition. It can affect the way the child thinks about people and stuff. Yes. So going to what you were saying, AC, you see, There is a way a father, will dance with a daughter, and it's different from the way a boyfriend is going to dance with that daughter. A father, I'm just using it like, figuratively, a father would teach that daughter how to dance, and there's a way he's going to hold her. First, there's a way he's going to take her to the dance floor like a gentleman. I just don't know if the boyfriend can do that. And then there's a way he's going to steady her on the dance floor. And his movements are guided. If he moves too fast, he's going to guide her so she doesn't fall down. I don't know if a boyfriend can do that. There's a way he's going to take her through the emotions. It's so amazing when a father takes time and teaches the daughter how to dance. He's protective. There's no intention. It's safe. It's security right there. That boyfriend might have an agenda. It's different between the father who teaches the daughter how to dance and a boyfriend who teaches the father that girl how to dance, because who wasn't there? The father. The father was not there. And that is very important, because you see, a son, a child growing up, the male child models his character after the father's character, but the female, that daughter, models other people's behavior after the father's character. And that is very important.
Okay.
The daughter models other people's behavior after the father's character. The son models their character after their father's character. If daddy drinks beer, I drink beer. If daddy shouted at mama, I shout at mama. If dad said something that was funny, the way he behaves with other people, the son is going to do that. There is a process of identification that is very strong between that father-son relationship. When it comes to the father-daughter relationship, she's going to model all the people's behavior. She's going to see her future husband in the eyes of the father. How the father taught her how to dance on that floor, how to treat other people. That is how she's going to see her husband. Even if that husband is not doing anything funny along the line, the daughter is going to think about the father and accrue that past behavior to the present husband. It happens sometimes, but it takes building confidence over years. It takes building a safe zone to trust the husband, to say, this is my man. He can't treat me like that. Now, I just want to say something very important here about human behavior. It is all about the quotient. Quotient. When I was in school, we were taught, and that was wrong, that the measure of success was intelligence quotient only. You have to be very intelligent. So we're having the A grades in chemistry, in physics, in biology. We're the top dogs in class. Intelligence quotient. But there's something else. There's a social quotient. There is emotional quotient. There are three quotients in life which are very important. That's why the most successful people in the world were not the most intelligent people in their classrooms. There are people who have a high social quotient and a high intelligence and emotional quotient. I'm going to take that intelligence quotient as ability to solve problems, ability to reason problems. I'm going to take a social an emotional quotient as ability to understand other people and to understand what motivates them, to understand yourself and your reactions to other people and vice versa. I'm going to try make an attempt at defining the social quotient as your ability to work with other people, to create a role with them and to get them to work, to cooperate with you. That's a social quotient. Now, a father has such a huge role in the child's quotients, intelligence, social, and emotional, because they set the emotional tempo for that child. And it's very important, because if that child cannot connect to the father and the father cannot connect to the child, there begins the process of social disintegration.
Yeah.
You're going to have all these waves of personality disorders, cluster A, cluster B, cluster C. Let me talk about cluster B, for example. There are 4 types of cluster B personality disorders. And this could stem from the lack of that father role. The child can have a borderline personality disorder, an antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic tendencies, low self-esteem, which will be related to such personality disorders, because there was a poor emotional quotient that they accrued due to lack of father figure. Human behavior is based on that relationship. Another important thing I want to emphasize is, let's take a typical family structure, because the family is a basic fundamental unit of society. So a happy and constructive and progressive family will give us a very constructive, progressive, and happy society. So if there is something that goes wrong in society, it starts with the family structure. It starts with the father-mother relationship and children. So I have a father, I have a mother, and children at home. Now, this is what happens. There's a cycle of love dad, push mom away, and a cycle of love mom, push dad away. There was a time when, growing up as children, we're going to hate our mother for some weeks or months.
Yeah.
We're going to hate the mother and love dad, or love dad and
Okay.
push the mom away. If a child grows up without a father, and it comes a time when that child is going to push mom away, but there is no father to love and hold on to, that creates a lacuna, a gap in that child as the child grows up, and it's going to translate to that child's behavior, interaction with others in society. It is so big, and it just goes on and on. I live in the United States of America, I've appreciated what Tres Cator's charm and Ivy shared, especially in the areas where we talked about cultures.
Hi,
Now,
Dr.
yes, the
Akko.
mark. In the United States of America, as an artist, I listened to songs that Tupac
Yeah.
sang a long time ago. And when I listened to the song, it was like, the song is sung for Mama. He said, "You always was a black queen, Mama. There is no way I can pay you back. Give me plans to show you that I understand." And then when he came to his father, he said, when he died, when my father died, he was never there in my life. I couldn't cry, when he passed away. That's what he said. Let me repeat that in the way he sang it. He passed away, and I couldn't cry because my anger couldn't make me feel for a stranger. You see, my father passed away, and I could not cry because my anger couldn't make me feel for a stranger. I started having that great attachment to music when I was in Africa, and I heard this word that Tupac sang, Mama. But Mama was so close, and Daddy was not there. I was like, why is this guy saying this? Now, I live in the United States, and I understand better, because in this society, you have basketball players talking about Zion Williamson gets out there and has this great contract, and he's crying the arms of his mother on national TV. He talks about Mama. Everybody's talking about LeBron James is talking about Mama. Everybody talks about Mama because that father figure is not there. And you have single moms raising children. It is quite a social conundrum, and that, to me, will reflect to this thing that we see in this community of Black people in America, where we don't have a father figure. You can cut corners when it comes to the basic fundamentals, the unit of life, family, and social structure. And as you rightfully said, in Africa, it's not about your physical father being there. You're going to have a daddy. I mean, was it Cham or Seska was talking about 3 children in one home who come from different families, and they are brought up like brothers and sisters, So I just want to say that let daddy teach the daughter to dance. Learn all the steps from daddy. Daddy will never let you go astray. That is going to teach you when you're going to fall and how a man can treat you like a lady in future, because any child who goes to the school of daddy is going to be so comfortable in life because she's going to learn how to say no or yes when she meets a man who wants to treat her right. I hope there was some contribution, and I hope I didn't take a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Akko. Ivy, I'm so sorry for getting into your time. Okay.
Oh no, that's fine. That's all right.
Because you believe it. Can you just give us the last word to fathers, to the family?
Before I say my last words, I just want to say I am enjoying this so much. It's a shame that I have to go. I have a workshop at 6 o'clock, which is going to be starting. Well, I'll be starting it as soon as I drop off from here. But before I say my last words as well, I just want to commend Tres Catos, Dr. Akko, Cham. I want to commend you men for starting to give these issues a voice, because so many of our men are shying away from talking about things like this because of the responsibility that comes with the changes that they have to make to their lives on a daily basis. And it is by talking about issues like this that is going to raise the profile of fathers in our community, especially when we as African, when African men start to talk about them. So I really, really do commend you guys for, talking about it. But my last words to fathers is this now: being a father or being a dad or being pa or being papa, whatever you call it, it's it's a lifelong thing. It is hard. It is a hard job. Okay. I take off my hats to you because it comes to us naturally as women. Because we are naturally, by nature has made us women to have those motherly instincts, to be able to just think up a meal and cook it straight away. For you men, it does not come naturally. Now, let me say for the majority of men, it does not come naturally by nature. And that means you have an added bonus, not bonus, you have an added job to actually place yourself in those situations where you are, intentionally becoming, doing what fathers or taking on some of the roles in the home. Also, I want to just encourage men that educate yourselves on issues like these, please. It is really key. Dr. Ako, you mentioned something that is really close to my heart. When I talk on my shows, I talk a lot about, raising the psychological aspect of being a human being as a whole. And you mentioned, a cluster B and narcissistic abuse and all of that, or personality disorders. Now, this is something that is plaguing our communities, and so many of us do not even understand it yet. We don't even know it. Now, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just someone who is interested in things like those because I know that they are plaguing our communities. And I commend you men for coming up and talking about it. And thank you, AC, for having me on the show. I did say to you earlier that unfortunately by the time I start enjoying myself, that is when I'll have to leave, which is a bit of a shame really. But I do hope that we can carry on conversations like this even outside of this platform,
Yeah.
on Facebook, and if not, meet up someday wherever,
Yeah.
but I do hope that we can carry on conversations like this, and thank you for having me on the show as well.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Ivy, and I really appreciate. And we are sorry for taking up your time because you have your program
Absolutely not. It's
as
my
well.
pleasure.
Yeah. And yes,
My pleasure.
these conversations will continue out of Facebook. COVID has to go and we have to continue. So we are doing more of this on Facebook because COVID has kind of put a barrier to so many things. But after COVID, we are going to start having face-to-face shows, and we intend to continue with conversations like this, giving a voice to these issues that are plaguing our societies, and they are eating up individuals. So we really need to talk about them so as to be able to heal ourselves as well. And in addition, on our show, we educate, we raise awareness. We don't come here to this show to blame who did what, who is wrong or who is right. We aim at educating, looking at these issues, looking at these problems, and try to get solutions to these issues. Thank you once more. And to continue, all right, Ivy, I'll catch up with you.
I'm gonna drop it. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So, guys, to continue, so there are some parents who are quite attached, or some fathers who have this lovely attachment with their children, and I would like you, Cham, as a son or as a father to be. I know I know Cham personally from childhood because we were neighbors, and unfortunately I still have that kind of a 9-year-old or 10-year-old of you, and I absolutely enjoyed the relationship you guys had with your dad. He's a very quiet and a calm man. For the number of years I've known your dad, Cham, I've never heard him raise his voice, and he has this lovely relationship with his children. How was your experience? I know you were the one living under that roof. I was a neighbor, but I know what I used to see. So you could just give us a little bit about your relationship. What were your expectations? What are your expectations, and what you got from your dad?
Okay, thank you, Clarice. Thanks, Tres. You've touched a lot of things there, which have really inspired me. Thank you, Dr. Ako. Brilliant talk as always. And Ivy, she's not here to hear me, but I've learned a lot from her as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and straight away give my experience about all of this. First of all, like everyone else here, I also come from a very African home. My mom actually resigned from her job when she got married. She was a primary school teacher. She resigned from her job to raise her kids. And mind you, my dad was not a millionaire at the time. It was just about, I believe, commitment to an understanding between this couple. They were very unique in a couple of things they did. First of all, they got married in two churches because my dad loved his wife and he didn't want to impose his faith on her. So they got married in the Catholic Church and in the Presbyterian Church. And those are one of the ways which my dad showed his in his own way, his own love. Now, my mom stayed at home permanently, and that means that it was her daily duty to be the CEO, chief operating officer of the household. And for people like me, who was a little bit very stubborn, that also meant that a daily whipping, at least 2 doses every day, then I go no say I did well that day. Yeah, but like Clarice said, my dad never ever beat any of us. And I don't think it's because he was encouraging a bad character. I just think it was about trust in his partner to bring us up in a particular way. Another thing which I learned from my dad was my dad never ever ate a meal in my presence or in the presence of my brothers and sisters and finish the meat. So at some point, my mom had to learn that she has to put big meat, because if she doesn't put big meat, her husband will end up not eating it, because he will always have to share it. He will always. Sometimes they send you to go and sleep. You're waiting for dad to come. You just go. You take the wash hand basin, and take it into the room with you, just to ensure that when daddy comes, somebody will look for the wash hand basin, and they will come and ask you, where is the wash hand basin? That time you wake up and you are sure of having a taste of that meat. Now, these little tricks that we did to keep our dad's attention, because he went out in the morning, came back in the night, he hustled like every other dad out there. He was not a perfect person, but he had his own way. He is not a perfect person. I keep saying it as if he don't die. He's much alive and he's very active at his 73 years of age. So these are the things which I learned from it, and it is based on this which I can propose what I think as a dad I'm going to do, or what I think dad should do out there. First of all, to be a source of confidence. I kid you not, my dad has never doubted me. Sometimes after saying some things to him, I feel guilty that what if I'm lying? He has never doubted me. He has never. So he's the kind of person whom I get in trouble in school. When I get in trouble, the first thing mom does is she first gives you a beating, and then she asks what happened. So you are very sure to not be at fault. But my dad is the person who will not want to hear whether you did anything wrong. He will just ask, "Are you okay?" So dads need to be present in their children's life to inspire that confidence, that confidence that they can go out there, face the entire world, and come back and still be able to say their name boldly and hit their chest and say they are able to do or to overcome certain challenges out there in the world. The second thing which my dad offered in a weird way was leadership. He offered a model of leadership because he allowed my mom to organize the home and to organize the hierarchy of the home. So you saw this hierarchy play out in things like, for example, on a Saturday when everybody's at home and mom shares, finish cooking and shares the food, you see that you cannot touch your plate until your elder brother and your elder sister have eaten. Now, this is just an example of their own remote way of showing that there should be some system of hierarchy in the household and should be some system of respect. Nowadays, I think that's an archaic idea, but the underlying foundation remains, the foundation principle, and it is the establishment of a system of hierarchy and a system of operation, so that there is no point in time in the house where one person is not responsible for something. So you can't really come into the house and see the dishes unwashed, and you have to ask, why did somebody not wash it? Because you already know the person who should be doing that at that point in time, and that's what I think fathers need to be instilling in their household. Thirdly, as Dr. Ako said, boys model themselves after their dad's behavior, because of the confidence, which in some cases, I must confess, like some of the things I said, sometimes when we need 300 in school and I say 400 and I say 500 instead of the 300, a mom is the one who argue and be like, are you sure? Can you give me that teacher's number? But she was only able to do that because my dad had made it clear that, okay, my mom is the go-to person, unless so it was difficult to say manipulate the two parents, and again, being able to act as a source of inspiration to give that confidence that the child can go out there and will think that everything is under control. We're from a broke home, but to be honest with you, I grew up as if we're from a very rich home. I spoke a lot of English, and I always felt like everything was under control. In fact, somehow I always felt like we have connection in Yaoundé. I don't know where the connection was going to come from, but I felt like we have connection in Yaoundé until I went to the university, and then 1, 2, 3 months will pass without allowance, and then I know that connection no deal, But growing as a child, it was always as if there is somewhere to run to when things get hard, and it was because of that confidence that my dad, rolled out. And I think that that's what we should be modeling to our own kids. But that is not without hindrances. In today's world, there are various hindrances to the wishful thinking of dads. There's a lot of people out there, we are unable to call them father or daddy, or we are condemning them. But there is one thing or another which is blocking them from performing their duties. The first thing that comes to mind is alimony laws. The alimony laws of today in almost all countries are biased against men. I must put it like that. Men are disproportionately victims of these laws. Then there is a growing tendency of women, especially those who are exposed to the Western world, to weaponize kids, to use kids as a bargaining chip, to use kids as a way of balancing the equation or teaching the men a lesson. When you do that, you force responsibility out of a man. And when you force responsibility, it's not responsibility, it's obligation. When you force it out of a man, it doesn't give it with the emotions that it's supposed to come with. And so it doesn't serve the purpose of guardians and of confidence and of inspiration, which if the man was doing it out of his free will or out of his own endowed sense of responsibility, he would have done it with. So those things come. And then we have the cultural shock of today. We live in a globalized world where with the internet, one rule comes out in America today, and somebody somewhere in womb, after barefoot in one village somewhere, is trying to implement that thing. Carrying gender expectations of the Western world and throwing it at genders of the village. So out here, we know that people have to go to work to earn, and it's just unfair that you are working, your wife is working, and then you leave all the housework, in her hands. That's like Tres Cator said. That's common sense. That shouldn't even be a point of advocacy. That's common sense. If she's not around and the kid needs something, it's my kid. I definitely step in. But now to carry that concept and take to my dad, whose arrangement with his wife was that drop out from work and focus on the kids. Whether it was his idea or her idea, they have that agreement. To bring that now, it just mixes up everything, and it just puts everything in an imbalanced position. Another aspect of the cultural hindrance which we have is the fact that there is a growing movement in the air. There's a new air that is some sort of intimidating men and is making men timid in certain areas. So women have been historically oppressed, and that's a sad thing, you know. And we ought to put our hands together to work towards that thing, and to work towards reversing that trend. However, we cannot in the process, punish even the men who are not in that kind of behavior. I mean, punishment is meant for a crime, not before a crime. So some men go out there working with fear in them. I have a lot of friends who are parents or who have kids and who want to be that, but because of the different cultures. In America, the laws are different. In the UK, the laws are different. In Cameroon, the laws are different. You can meet your child only now. You can't meet your child now. You can do this for your child. You can show up at this time. They are unable to reach out to these kids and to provide this fatherly love. So as much as there are wonderful benefits in the presence of a child, of a dad in the home, there are also hindrances which, if society enjoys the presence of a child in the home and they want to promote it, then we have to work towards eliminating these hindrances, and trying to make sure that we create a fatherly friendly atmosphere, a fatherly friendly world for everyone. Because like we said earlier, like we established earlier, a happy man, it reflects on the wife, it reflects on the children, it reflects on the society, because like it or not, we live in a patriarchal world, and that's not a bad thing. That's also another misconception, because patriarchy is what has achieved the level of technological advancement and the level of civilization that we have today. Patriarchy is just about individualism and capitalism. To do away with patriarchy, you have to do away with capitalism, individuality, comparativeness. These are innate attributes that a father puts on the child. You can do better, you can get better, you can do better than this project, you can add value to this thing or that thing. So everything when it becomes toxic becomes a problem. So of course, toxic patriarchy, toxic masculinity, toxic feminism, toxic whatever, once it is toxic, it becomes a problem. But we have to do away with these hindrances if we have to create a fatherly friendly society.
Thank you so much, Cham. We have to create a family friendly environment, because a happy father will have happy kids and will have a happy wife, a happy home, and a happy society. Harry, as a dad to girls, what is that special attachment that you have? What is it that makes you have that special attachment to your kids? What are the special things that you do to have that bond with them? And what can you tell other dads out there who do not have that special attachment with them? Let me unmute you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was saying, after that Cham's brilliant interlocution presentation, you just have to drop the mic and close the show, because I think he done said it all, right? I don't know what more. But look, I believe that, like Cham said, right? There are hindrances along the way, and sometimes it's really, we were supposed to talk about mental health. Sometimes you look at those hindrances and then you weigh it on yourself and you ask yourself that, is it affecting my mental stability that I have to deal with this kind of situation? And is it better for me to just retract myself out of that situation, because it might be so toxic, it might be bad for the child, it might be bad for everybody around. And sometimes removing yourself from that equation stabilizes everything. Now, the only bad rep you get is that you're a deadbeat dad, you're not present, but because you're present is creating this eruption and that stuff. So with those kind of situations, I would say leave, right? And when the child is ready, I have friends who, after 14, 15 years, the child was like, you know what? I need to go look for my father. I don't want to be in this environment again. And then they go out, look for their father, and then they find out that everything that they have been fed, everything that they've been told about their father was a complete lie, a fabrication, right? So that is one case. So I would not advise that kind of person that be like me, be in your child's life. Of course, if I have a relationship with my wife that becomes toxic, I'm going to eject myself. I'm not going to be worried about what social media is saying, if calling me names or calling me that. The problem is my sanity first. I cannot take care of my kids if my mind is not right, right? I would probably cause more harm to my kids if I don't have the faculties to handle that situation. So when I see things like deadbeat dads interjected into stuff, and after hearing what Cham is saying, I've sat back and reflecting, and I'm like, yes, in some cases, it makes sense that the father should not be there in a short term. Long term, you have to always check back to see if that person is still at that unstable level where can I come back into my child's life, or you cannot just abandon it. But however, for the people that are within their who are there but are not present, it is very important. It is very important to give a break to the woman, the mother of your children, because sometimes you're not always married to have kids. It is important to take that responsibility of child raising and child responsibility from the woman, and you absorb it, right? One time I was talking to my elder sister and she was traveling to Dubai, and she called me and I'm like, where you at? And she's like, I'm in Dubai. And my next question was like, where are the kids? I swear to God, this woman got offended out of this world. And I do not know what pissed her off. And she's like, don't they have a father? Do they not have a father? So I cannot travel because I have kids. And again, it was just that man thing was just, okay, how are you traveling by yourself, going you to Dubai, and you don't let your kids out here? And I sat back and I thought about it. And when she came back, I called her up. I apologized. I was like, look, these are all teachable moments, right? And I went back to my wife and I like, listen, if you need to travel, you need to go to Vegas, if you need to go anywhere and just take out stress, I will take the babies, okay? Don't I will sleep, I would order pizza. If I cannot cook, we'll order something. But these are things that open your mind. And if I never had that conversation with my elder sister, I would have never been in that position to understand that a woman just needs to up and go. And so then I started to teach my friends too that, listen, your wife with 4 kids can just up and go. She can go to Haiti, she can go to anywhere and just be there for a week. Because my sister was gone for a week and a half. And she's like, no, let the man take care of his kids. And they're married. They live in the same house, right? It's not like it's baby daddy, baby, this is husband and wife, right? And they're happy. So you have to, it's an evolving, we are all learning. There's not a manual where you go in and look at, well, where am I at this level? It's constant, you're constantly making mistakes, but you're not being George, you're pulled up by your bootstraps, you're learning all of these things, you understand? So when Cham has a kid, he's not going to be his father, of course. He's going to be his own man. He will learn from his dad. There are things that he would have taken from his dad that would instill into his kids, right? And this thing he talked about, stay-at-home mom. There's this big fight to destroy the premise of stay-at-home mothers, or now we have stay-at-home dads.
We do.
And that needs to go away. That if a family, if a man and a woman agree that one person stays at home, sacrifice their career, sacrifice everything to raise their kids, they have put their kids above everything else. You cannot come from outside as a strong feminist or a strong organization or a strong whatever that you are to tell that woman that you should not, you're sacrificing yourself to raise your kids. That is a man and a woman that has made a decision to raise their family. You don't have an opinion. You don't have a say on that particular situation, right? And we must learn to respect what works for people, right? What works for me will not necessarily work for Dr. Ako, will not necessarily work for you, ACN will not necessarily work for Cham. So, but we need to understand that if the kids under my house are happy, then that's all that matters. I cannot I could see a household where in America, The man is hands off. Maybe he works 2 jobs and the woman works 1 job, but she has the time to raise the kids, right? He doesn't go to PTA. He doesn't take them for soccer because he's always at work paying the bills. Personally, I'm opposed to that because if you're having to work 2 jobs, everybody's working 2 jobs, somewhere along the line, we're living far above our means, right? So maybe we should reevaluate those kind of things to cut back the amount of work to focus on other things, right? That's besides the point. But if that situation works for you, I should not impose what I think should be a gold standard for everybody, right? Kids, we have never asked kids whose fathers are not in their life, what do they think? We always react on our own emotions, right? We always say, oh, he's this, he's that, but that kid does not care. That kid does not care that my dad has now done this. I just want to see him. I just want to know who he is. I don't care what your problem with my dad is. I just want to be by my. There are kids who love their fathers who are poor, who are exceptionally cannot provide anything, right? And the mother has made a mockery of this man, but the kid just wants to. The kid leaves from school, stops by the father's house, and that's the world for this child. But the mother is saying your father is irresponsible, your father is a deadbeat, and you're putting all of these things into a child's head. And we need to be able to reverse that narrative. We need to be able to step back and understand the child's own point of view. How does the child see their father? You understand? So we cannot teach men. We could encourage men. We could have educational platforms where we say, it is your responsibility to be part of the process. Kids want to know that their parents are there. Cham said his father was not the disciplinarian. I think that is very reflective of my wife's household. Their father was he was like Cham's dad. He was not the disciplinarian. The mother was the disciplinarian. So I think in most households, one person plays a role, this other person plays a role, right? In modern societies now, for a child to go do a dishes, I have to bribe the child. Oh, I'm gonna give you $10 if you do the dishes. I'm gonna give you $10 if you clean your own room. And we value this system and think that this is modernity. This is what is in style, and that's how you raise a child. My mom, she was not a real disciplinarian, but it was not a conversation. If your room was messy, we don't negotiate. Like Cham said, I was the bad kid. I get the whooping. You understand? When that whip hits your back, you clean your room, you clean your sister's room, you might even clean the neighbor's room. You understand? And I don't have any problems. Maybe I do, I just don't know. But here, if you have that kind of stuff, they immediately alarm the whole situation. You understand? And then we have kids that at some point have to go to the university and they're not going to have that shelter. So we create shelters for these kids and then we send them across the country. I'm in Chicago. I send my daughter to California to go to university. Who did I raise? Can she handle the freedom of the free world? You understand? Do we factor these things? So as parents, as we must have conversation. It's a complex building puzzle, right? We're constantly moving it around to adjust to the circumstance. And there's not one hat that fits everybody. The way Dr. Ako raises his son, the way he's getting into his son's life. I don't know how long the son was back home and he was here, and he has to make up with that gap, right? Like I said, I have a daughter that I'm constantly making up the void that she's not having me on an everyday basis, right? And so as much as I have stable kids at home, when I'm working with this other child, I feel like I'm that dad that's away. You understand? So I'm working like two dads in one. So there's no way that you could say, okay, do this, because I'm not going to have the same situation I have with my kids at home as I have with this kid from my other relationship, right? I'm not going to have that same dynamic that works here. I have this autonomy, this control. So it's hard to paint one picture. I'm going to pick the pieces that are given to me and I'm going to work with that, right? But as long as I'm in the child's life, as long as she knows me, as long as she's getting the benefit of that, I'm somewhat happy, not all the way happy, but I'm somewhat happy. So there's no one formula for everybody. But we must have men, we must continue to encourage men that you cannot abandon ship. Exceptional cases where you can, but in most of the cases, you should not abandon ship. You should not run up. It's your responsibility, and you should be proud of your offsprings as they are proud of you as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it's every father's responsibility, whether a child is with you or not, to be able to take care of your child. And I will also encourage women, especially who are married to men who have other children or who have had children before they got married to them. One of the first things you should ask that man is whether he's got a child. And if he says yes, you, as a responsible woman, I think, because I did, as a responsible woman, you should be able to ask that man, are you involved in this child's life? Are you taking up your responsibilities as a father in that child's life? And if he is not, I ask you, ladies, to tell the man to take care of that child, because there is, I can't really prove this, but I think there is a tendency that if he has not been taking care of that other child, not because somebody is preventing him from doing so, there may be a probability may be high that he may not be able to take care of the children he is going to have with you. So this is a conversation any woman who is about to get married to a man who already has a child before the relationship, you have that conversation. And
Let
to
me
our
let me let me let me say something real quick to that. I think that it's a very important point that
Mhm.
if you're gonna come into a man's life, you want to understand, because a woman moves around with her child, right, or children. If you're meeting a woman that has a child, eventually you would know that she has a child. But with a man, you might not know that they have kids until maybe far later. But this are measuring points that you establish that. Um, how does he handle his child? Because if I'm going to have a child with you, I want to know that the way you handle your first child. And I want to know the circumstances, like you said. If there are those barriers that Cham was talking about, if there are those hindrances, that then I understand, right? Because this system is, people always talk of patriarchy as favoring men. This Western system is anti-man, it's anti-male, right? If you live in America, I don't really know about the UK. America is not a place where a man wants to go to court for any reason, be it divorce, child support, because it's just anti-you, right? So a woman wants to know your responsibility level, right? Because if you're already irresponsible, like you said, chances are absolutely out the window that you're going to be irresponsible with these kids. So I want to see how you've handled or how you're handling your kids. And then I would trust that you're going to handle my own kids with that same level of respect, love, and care.
Yeah, thank you so much for that additional information. Dr. Ako, I'm coming to you now. When a father isn't there, statistics or research shows that it can have a lot of negative impact on a child's behavior and a child's psychological development. How does this affect the child, or how does this manifest itself in the child? There may be some
Yeah,
there may be some genuine reasons why a dad is not in the child's life, maybe because of bereavement and other reasons, but most often the child is being affected. And we've already said so many things, so many positive things about the dad being involved, being engaged in his child's life, but the absence of a father has a lot of negative effects psychologically, mentally. So how do this manifest itself, and how can we or how can you as a dad help such a child?
yeah. Uh, that's a great question, AC. It's cracking a little bit, so I
Yeah.
listen, and if I don't hear very well, I look at the laptop because it's written out the question.
Okay.
So if I understand very well, you're asking me how does a child, the manifestation of the child, father not being in the life of the child, is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. what are the
Yeah.
manifestations and what happens. Yes, yeah. To answer that, I just want to say, first of all, Champ, wow, Harry just got into this thing so hard. At one point, he was just like giving the points. I'm like, yeah, we got a house which is really addressing the issues at hand, and this is a very important conversation about, the role of fathers in the child, because according to the social structure that we were here on planet Earth, which has been created by God, whom I believe the father is the head of the household. So when the head is not there, the neck is going to suffer, the body is going to suffer. When the head is diseased, and the neck will suffer, the members will suffer, and that is just the way it is. So to answer that question, there is a psychosocial conundrum, interwoven within the fabric of the neglected, abused child. And I'm using these words carefully because when the father is not in the life of the child and does not do what that has to do, it can be characterized as parental neglect or abuse. Yes, there have been children who have been taken away from their families because of neglect or abuse. Unfortunately, what neglect and abuse is in some cultures is not what neglect and abuse is in all the cultures. I'm talking like the culture where we come from. Children are neglected and abused all the time, but there's nothing that is done. We nip it in the bud, address it in families. Sometimes don't talk about it. We're talking about the role of parents, like the father, and that can be very devastating to the child. It can be very devastating to the child. So this conundrum is so interwoven in that fabric of that neglected, that abused child, because that child is going to grow up with mental health disorders. I see patients. I see patients on a daily basis whose genesis the mental health issue was because there were no parents present in their lives. When you are not there for your children get sick mentally and emotionally, and that is a fact. And how that translates will depend on the culture where you come from. Nobody's going to care if they come from Africa. You're going to be all right. Because I was talking about depression in our last talk. Nobody's depressed in Africa. People are sad. Nobody has anxiety disorders in Africa. You're just worrying about something. More people are tied up, and the families are tied. Witchcraft and stuff like that. We don't talk about neurotransmitter disorders and all that stuff. It is so different in certain cultures. We need to address that. Because children who are neglected, who are abused, children who are not shown love, will express that neglect, express that abuse socially, emotionally. They can't interact well with society. We have many forms of antisocial behaviors, which are prevalent in children, who have been neglected. We have poor academic performance in children, who are neglected by their parents. We have depression, anxiety, and different types of anxiety disorders, from phobias and the rest in children who are neglected. A child who is neglected and not shown love by the parents does not behave like a child who has been, who's being loved all the time. Daddy's in the games, nice birthdays. You are spoken to with a lot of respect in front of your friends. You're made to be part of that unit and society. It's important. Harry mentioned something about like my son coming here. I knew that I just had to be there for him. If not, things are not going to be okay, because it is not about how strong this child is or how intelligent this child is. The fact that he's going to confront a new culture, and that is there. So as I mentioned before, I stepped down from all positions of responsibility, president of the association here. That never mattered anymore. That boy is here, and I want to be in his games. If I'm not in his games, he's going to start thinking differently. He's going to start viewing me differently. But they don't talk. He's going to start forging and molding his character, and he start identifying towards that, being a male, and that is important because the children do not talk. So we have to get close to them for them to talk. And sometimes we feel because they're teenagers, they're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, they need us. They need us so much, because at the point where you begin to date a girl, you have to have a conversation with that child. You have to have a conversation with him. He's always your child. Even if he's 60 years old, there's always something he can learn from you because you are a step ahead of him all the way. Yeah, so he never ceases to learn from you, especially when he has adjusted himself. I mean, I'll call it as addicted. He's in an addiction of father addiction. You know, I have to be with daddy and listen to daddy all the time. That child is already there. Don't push the child away. So there are many psychosocial conundrums which are linked to neglected and abused children. You know, we cannot abuse a child and say, why good, why myth. And the dad, I can do anything or tell you anything. You can do that. That is unacceptable. And another important thing I want to mention here, how you talk to your child and how you talk about your child to other people before your children is very important. I learned that. You know, I'll give you an example. If I'm with people, I'm like, oh, I know Calvin, and I was about calling his name, I was about to name under the boss. I was like, I know he can get out there and do this, but I'm very sure that he's going to be fine. He's always a very smart young man. Let me repeat what I just did. There are people sitting there and we're talking about my son. I'm like, oh, I know he's fine. I know that he does those things, but I know at the end of the day, he's always a very responsible young man and he's going to be okay. I just used the word of affirmation and he heard that. It's not about the fact that he's fine right there or he's great now. I continuously do that and children listen to that and they take to that. They take to that. You are molding them with every word that you say, especially before other people. We can belittle our children and it will have an effect. Every word we say, every actions we take, we can explain it. You know, it's not easy. We must not be perfect. I don't need to be perfect. That tells me I'm not perfect, and my son will understand that. But they are very smart. So they know that in the general understanding of things, and daddy is there for me. Daddy cares for me. Daddy understands me. You know, about relationships. Okay, I'll give you an example. Like, are we going to be for the child that he's going to get married? So we start talking about marriage when he's about 20, 21. I'm going to teach him about marriage before somebody else teaches him about marriage. Before the streets teach him about marriage. Before his girlfriend talks about marriage. Before his girlfriend's family that he goes to sometimes talk about marriage. I want to talk about it because I'm daddy. And he trusts me. Yeah. You know, he trusts me for that. I want to talk about the girl. I want to talk about girls. I want to talk to my son about how I used to date back in the days, the mistakes I made. That's what I have to do. You know, who's going to do that? So I want to tell him the mistakes and you got to be careful here, you know. If he wants to push too much in the area after, I'll be like, hey, yeah, how many more years you got? Because he's preparing to go to medical school, you know. And I'm like, okay, if you go to medical school, you might need a girl in medical school, you know. I don't know if you need a girl, how your present girlfriend, how serious are you taking it? I play with him. I want to hear what he has to say, you know. I'm not forcing him, but I'm guiding him. You got to be careful here, you know, because stuff is going to go down. If you do not guide your child, there are going to be complications down the road. He is looking forward to that. He comes to me and he has a conversation on that sometimes. You know, okay, if he's married, he has children, we still have a conversation. When he has grandchildren, we still going to have a conversation. So it's continuous. You know, it is not as if it ends when he's 15. I love this man, TD Jakes. You know, Bishop TD Jakes said something very important when I listened to him in the past. He said, when a child is growing up, you know, and that child is because you see, the mother, before I say this, the mother has shown, women have shown that they can be a father and a mother to a child without the father being there. I have to give that to women. Many have done that. We've had many successful people. But those are exceptional cases. In the general context of things, a child will need the father and the mother. That being said, Bishop TJ says it's good for the child to have the father, to have the mother. The mother gives birth to the baby, breastfeeds the baby. The child needs the mother more than anybody else at that time. You know, growing up, that emotional bond, attachment is powerful. But as that child begins to grow, 10, 11, 12, 13, give that child to daddy. Give that child to daddy. Let daddy spend more time with the child and begin to forge that child. Not that we're taking the child away from mama, but that child needs daddy so much because daddy has a role to play at that time, which is more than what mama can do. Just like when the child is born, that child needs mommy more than daddy, even though daddy is there. You know, those things are very important. We do not want the manifestation of mental health issues because of parental neglect, parental abuse. You know, we want parents to be there. We want our father to be there for the game, be there, listen to what they like, lay down rules and regulations, enforce the rules and regulations. If you do not enforce rules and regulations on your children, the law is going to enforce rules and regulations on your children in future when they break them. And that's just a fact. So it is like a whole prototype. I'm going to enforce rules and regulations on my children. You can do this, you can do that. No, you're grounded. I hope you understand. I love you, that we're going to go this route. What do you think about it? Because that is just the way it's supposed to be. I'm laying those ground rules and regulations for the child so that the child does not break future rules and regulations by being antisocial, by being angry at society, and by feeling that he was not loved and directed. He doesn't have to break those rules, because if I do not lay down rules and regulations for him right now, so he's going to have to break some rules and regulations, and he's going to answer to the law. So that is all very important. I hope I did some small justice to the question.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Doctor. So which means the foundation, how the relationship you start building with your child at the beginning is very important. And you also mentioned something there, that when a child reaches a certain age, maybe from around 10 to 11, the mom has to, should I say, step back a little bit. Does it mean that the mom or a woman's involvement in a child's life can also have a negative impact on the child's life, especially the boy?
No. Yeah, Issy, if I understand, you're asking me if the mother's impact on the child life has a negative influence on the child's life.
If
That's what
a
you're saying, right?
mom, because you actually mentioned that at a certain age it's good for the mom to step back a little bit for the dad to take over some
Right.
responsibilities. So I'm asking, does it mean that a mom's over involvement in the child's life at a certain age may actually be detrimental to the child, or did you
Okay.
get it?
Let me read the question. Yeah, let me read the question. So I'm asking, does it mean that the most of just made of work?
All right.
Yes. Yes. It's important for mama to step back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When daddy's around. Yes, it's very important. You got to let daddy take that stuff. And that is where the father steps out to the plate. Daddy is not going to show up with a group of friends to play snooker on the pool drinking beer all day. It happens sometimes. Or have these friends, we Africans, with fun of our friends always in the house, and the same routine again. When mama steps back, daddy has to be present. Yeah, it means that we are driving over to, Popeyes. If we have to, it means we are driving together. I'm going to say it is so powerful. I remember watching American Gangster with someone. I love American Gangster as a movie, and I watch it over and over again. And one of my favorite lines I quote, is when, Denzel Washington, if you've watched it, was nearly shot, and he goes over to the guy who was supposed to protect him, and the guy tells him about success. He said, success took a hit on you. You are successful. That is why you're being attacked. And I taught my son about success from American Gangster. I taught him that being successful is a good thing, but it can also be a disadvantage if you don't know how to handle it. And it stayed with him because years later, he kept repeating it to me. He said, I remember one of my best days when I was sitting with you, watch American Gangster. He used to talk to me about success, and I learned from that. There are things which daddy can teach the child that mama can't. Mama can't teach a child how to be macho. It's all about testosterone. That testosterone that daddy has and that child has, it got to click sometime, we got to click in the way we have that conversation about being a macho, being a man. Being a man is being a man. This is what we go about things. Mama can't teach that. And that's why we have a lot of kids in America who struggle with that, because they were raised by single moms, and mama was there a lot more in their life. Daddy was in jail, or daddy was not present right there. So we talked about fathers who can be physically present, but they're emotionally and socially absent. And that's a problem. It's just like having no father at all, So mama is important. And if mama and daddy are in that relationship, mama got to step back a little bit and let daddy take charge. And daddy has to step up to the plate when mama does that. It has to be an agreement between a father and a mother. And it is natural, because the way mama folds a shirt and teaches that child is different from when that child folds a shirt. There is some effeminate behavior in male children who were raised up by single mom, because that's all they saw. I don't know if it is, we have to talk about research. I want to be careful with that, but I've heard it mentioned in certain places. Some effeminate behavior in some children raised by the mother because they could not conform to certain things. So please do not leave mama. Don't leave that relationship. Stick in the relationship, but give that man the opportunity to express himself at a certain stage. Just like when you give birth to that child cries, and mommy holds that child, and that child feels the mother, feels the new environment, and then the mama begins to breastfeed that child. At that moment, there is a bond which translates time. It's very powerful. It's just the way God made it. It translates time. It was not daddy's time. It was mama's time. 9 months right there in the womb is mama's time. It's not daddy's time. There is daddy's time and there's mama's time. It's the laws of nature. That child is growing up. You got to give it daddy's time, because let daddy teach the girl how to dance and teach the man how to fold a shirt and how to take care of business. Mama can say, oh, somebody's coming to knock on that front door. That is going to say, step up to the plate. There are parents I know in America, if you get out there, you get beaten, and you come home. Well, okay, let me explain that. If you get beaten out there, you go to the fight, you came home, what would mama do? Mama will say, and you're 14 years old, oh my God, what happened? Gonna take that, clean the rag. Oh, but mama is protective. Mama love. That's mama's role.
Yeah.
She's the champion of the family. She protects everybody. She protects her husband too. She's protective, and oh my baby, you gotta be careful. Don't go out there next time. You gotta be safe. Not daddy. There are many parents I know. When you get out there, get beaten, you come back home, daddy's going to beat you again. You say, so what did you do? You ran away? Get back there and fight. You got to know how to stand for yourself. Some people will look at it and say, oh my goodness, this is harsh. He taught that child how to stand for himself and stop running and coming home and crying, because you're going to be crying all your life. I don't want a child who's going to cry all his life. Get out there and fight. It's tough. And he's going to get out there, he's going to fight, and he's going to learn how to face adversity and to overcome it. So the father knows what he's doing. He steps up to the plate. You don't come back here crying next time, okay? I don't want to see you doing that. It's a huge thing. But mama can't do that. Mama will take you in and going to call the cops. You can't do that to my son. I mean, who do they think they are? Daddy's not going to call the cops. Daddy's going to make sure you take care of business. So we need to take that child away from mama at a certain point, or mama should be able to surrender so that the father can step in and take care of business. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Harry. While we are about to round up, we are almost getting to 2 hours of our show. And thank you once more, guys, for being there. Thank you so much for those watching, and keep sharing, keep inviting your friends. We are just about to round up now. Harry, you mentioned something there when you were talking about you spoke with your elder sister, and she was on her way to go and enjoy herself on her holiday. Then the first question that came to your mind was, and where are the kids? Harry reaction will equally be my reaction, because I will feel like, so my life only revolves around my children, right? And you seem to be very positive about the fact that she went off on a holiday. So how do you tell all men to encourage to allow their women to go on holiday, because sometimes they need that rest? There are so many women who have suffered devastating postnatal depression, and for a very long time, because we never had that chance. Never. I mean, where we grew up, we didn't know about mothers going for a holiday or taking a break from their families or from the children. We do not know about such in Africa, but in modern day lives, it's necessary. Sometimes you just need that break to be able to go away. But you and I, and we know that not all African men will allow their women to go to a holiday. But on the other hand, it's easy. So how would you advise your fellow men to do. A woman, your friend, and you obviously have women who are friends. I am one of them. And you have men who you have friends who are men and who've got their wives. Would you encourage them to give their wives time to go off to Dubai or to Paris, etc., for a holiday?
So it's a important conversation to have. I remember when I'm a big Tottenham fan. I have told you that a million times. And I wanted to come to London and watch the game. And I just told my wife, babe, I'm going to London to go watch a game. And she was like, okay. And I just opted and left. I didn't worry. I never cared that the kids, what would happen and that, and we planned it in such a way, but we did plan it in such a way that it was not conflicting with her work. I was in London only for 4 days, I think, or so. But back to having this conversation with men. When you sit back and you look at your privileges and that I could just opt and leave and the woman has to figure out where, because even when my sister is gone, it's still in her house. She's constantly calling to make sure when she's gone, it's just a physical body that has gone to Dubai, right? It does not mean that she has abdicated or has just she's not hands free. But for men, when we go, we go. We might even not call back for 2 days, right? So we need to have this conversation that listen, uh, women need a break. Some of this problems that happen in the house is because a woman doesn't have a channel to communicate that she needs an outlet, she needs a break, she needs to go and let out. She works full time, she has stress at work. Everybody in the Western world has a form of work related stress. You don't get along with your boss, you can't stand your coworker, or maybe you're in the customer service type industry and you're dealing with customers. And but for women, they have to come back and still deal with this home stress. And so then you need men to step up to the plate and say, okay, baby, I'll stay with the kids. You and your girls go have some fun, go to Florida, go to wherever you want to go, and have fun, relax. So we need to have this conversation with men, and as as difficult as it is, we need to start learning that we need to shoulder this responsibility. And I guess that's why women feel like they cannot trust leaving their men that they have kids with their kids. But I think that when we show more trust, I think that my wife is comfortable enough to leave me with the kids, all three of them, even the baby. Um, and go for a few days and come back. She went for a seminar in California, and I was with the kid and with the baby, and we slept, and it was fun. It was a free day. I would say that it was everybody do whatever you want to do type day. But you get to learn. I've gotten better, right? The first time when when she came back, the house was upside down. It was everybody was happy. I mean, the kids were telling her that, "Mommy, you need to go some more." You understand? Because, but But I learned that I need to be able to still hold down the fort, right? You need to still have a sense of organization. You still need to be the father that you need to be. So it's a learning process. So men have to just get to that point where we have to learn how to run the show, because what if your wife dies? I mean, I'm not just immediately going to run off and go marry another woman and just fill that void, right? So we need to ask this tough questions and say, if she's not there, I still have to raise the kids. They're my kids. They need to, and let me let her, because a happy woman, there's no woman who is happy and her man is not happy, right? So when you give that outlet for your woman to be happy, in return, you're gonna be happy. And I love that saying that behind every successful man is a successful, happy woman, right? So that translates to your success. And success is not necessarily financial. We must understand that, right? That success is not because now I'm a millionaire, then I'm successful. Because millionaires are also depressed. So men need to be able to look at the scenario and say, the world is changing. I'm not my dad. I'm not my grandfather. I am me, and my identity and the way my vision, where I want my kids to be. It's not necessarily where my dad wanted me to be. I could be there, but I have a different vision. The world that I grew up in is not the world that my kids are growing up in. right? I have the opportunity to afford my kids a lot of things. My parents did not have an opportunity to afford me a lot of things, and I don't fault them for that, right? But I cannot hold that same. I cannot say because I grew up in that kind of household, I have to hold all of these advantages from my kids, right? Funny enough, my wife woke up when I woke up to feed the baby this morning. I woke my wife up because I gave her the baby while I'm making the milk. So my daughter just starts to cry. She's not, her eyes are not even open, but she's crying. It's 5 a.m. in the morning and she's crying. And my wife whispers to me, "This one is so spoiled." So I'm like, so when we put the baby back to bed, right? I tell her that yes, she is spoiled because when we had the first two, we were not financially where we wanted to be as where we are today. So of course, this one will be spoiled, right? Because they're just the things that just come natural to her. And she knows it. She knows the comfort that she gets. But her elder two sisters, they didn't have that, right? They didn't have that luxury. So I remind my wife that her benefit, her lucky, she is born different, right? But these are conversations that you have with your friend, because my wife is my friend. So first of all, we teach men that your wife, your partner has to be your friend so that you guys have conversations. The problem is most relationships that they're not friends. They're just in a relationship. And so they cannot communicate, right? Because if you're not with a friend, then you guys can communicate. And when there's a breakdown of communication, everything else is through the window. So to have men take that responsibility, it's trust. It's first of all, the woman trusts you that, and I have to say, my sister's kids are not, they're within an age that they can self-sustain, right? Her daughter, my niece just turned I think 16, right? So they're within a reasonable age. I don't think she would have taken that journey if her kids were much younger, right? And so there's that too. Is a woman comfortable enough to leave her 3 months old and 6 months old or 1 year old with her husband and then go for a vacation? I don't know. Most women will make that decision consciously. Not that they don't trust the man, but there's also that, right? So, but men need to shoulder some of that responsibility. They need to be able to unburden that weight that the woman is carrying every day. You know, she's your mother. Imagine this. Look at this picture. Your wife goes to work. She comes back. She has to make sure that the house is clean. She has to check up that the kids have done their homework for the next day. She has to make sure that you've eaten, the kids have eaten. And then at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., you want to eat the other food and she has to provide it for you. This is cascading. It's just too much for the woman, right? So as a man, you need to sit back and look at the weight load, the workload of a woman. And then you ask yourself, what can I take? What other responsibility apart from paying the bills and paying this and paying that? What other responsibility can I take away from you so that you have some time to be who you are? Because women exhale the most when they have that freedom, when they have that opportunity, that springboard from which they can spring, right? So when you see a woman who does not spring up, look at her stress level, look at the weight that she's carrying, and you see why she cannot spring, right? But when a man is out there supporting the woman, when a man is out there pushing his wife forward, you will see how she runs like a cheetah or some deer fast. And that's success for you both. So men need to be able to take that responsibility. And a lot of men are doing it. We just don't get the credit. And I don't necessarily know if we need credit, but we need to let the other men who are not doing it, that it feels good to do it, right? It feels good to see your wife succeed, to see your partner succeed. It does have a reward for me in particular, that I could see that my wife is successful as long as alongside my success. We are not competing. We are both succeeding. And because of that, our kids are having a stable home. Our kids are enjoying, and we play together. We have fun. So we need all of these elements in the puzzle to be able to build out the family that we want. And like Doctor said, we cannot just run around here saying that a man is not an integral part of the family. All of this single familyhood, we're going to see it in the future, the next 20 years. We're going to see, because we're seeing some of those right now. We're seeing the impact of that. And it's only growing in number instead of shrinking. And that's because we're denigrating men, we're insulting men, and we're reinforcing the notion that you could actually raise a kid as a single mother. And we're not doing justice to ourselves. So we need to tone down that narrative, see how collectively, right, we can have a mother and a father in a household to raise a child. And even if it's not in a household, we want the mother and the father to be partners to raise the child, right? So it does not necessarily have to be that you guys stay in the same house, but if you guys, your relationship did not work for whatever reason, figure out a way that you can work for the best and only interest of that child.
Hmm. So brilliant. Someone says in the comment section that you have to be a mentor for other men. Well done, guys. Just to round up, Cham, do you have a final word to say before I get Doctor's final word?
I just want to say I've learned a lot from this Popsy seated here. Thank you guys very much. It's inspiring. But I don't think we will have been fair if we leave discussing much of the problem and not trying to throw our eyes towards what the potential solutions will be. So about kids who have grown up without fathers, what does the world represent to them? And how do they see fatherhood? These are things which we should think about. Should we have these considerations when dealing with delinquent children? Should we be able to sit down and say and count some of these things? I watched a certain very brilliant video where a guy put students to stand for a race, and he said, if you grew up with a dad, step forward. If you didn't have to worry for the next meal, step forward. And we realize that we are in this world, and people are on different pedestals. People started the race 10 steps ahead, 20 steps ahead, because of the opportunities that they had. So people who grow up without that, I believe that that's like they are starting the race a couple of steps behind. So what does it mean for them? How do we think that? How do we expect them to be in society? I'm not saying it's an excuse to be delinquent, but are these not things which we should also consider and involve in our approach towards combating certain social ills in society? The way forward, I think I always stress this when we talk, Claire. I say, Clarice, sorry, I say men need to be supported. We need support from civil society organizations, from women, from even kids, from government. We need support. I give this example every time. I say more people die from pancreas, from cancer. How do they call it? Prostate cancer, than from breast cancer. But breast cancer receives at least 4 times the funding and support for prostate cancer. But breast cancer is predominantly a female thing. Prostate cancer is predominantly a male thing. So that tells you how support is available. We are only choosing to not look in this other direction when giving out that support. The second thing we have to worry about is policy. We unfortunately, it's really unfortunate. We live in a society where our politicians are the people who have the least possible family values that can exist. We have those who come into office that are not married. We have those who are married multiple times. We have those who are married to disproportionate where we come from. I'll call it a weird kind of relationship. People like you see Boris Johnson here. You see Emmanuel Macron there. You see strange kind of family values that these people have, and yet these people go ahead and employ government officials based on political standings. They appoint somebody to be the head of Ministry of Family and that. And this person has never been married. This person probably has their beef with one man or one woman somewhere, and they are not interested in resolving it. And then they take this beef into the policy world, and then they make rules that is almost like they are revenging on their personal problems in this law. So we have people who do not reflect family value, making rules and regulations for families. We need to rethink our choice of leadership, really. And then many times when you say we live in a patriarchal society, the first tendency is for people to think of privileges for men. Unfortunately, men also are the biggest victims in the patriarchal system, because in patriarchy is the alpha male that dominates. It's the competitive person, is the person with the competitive edge that dominates. It's like capitalism, like I said. Once you're ahead forever. And the people behind continue to struggle to catch up. So men also suffer from it. So we have to look at support from community level. We have to look at support from our families, from our kids. We also have to look at policy. We have to look at moral values. I think no matter how much we run away from it, this is a time to adopt moral values. I don't care what your religious beliefs are, or if you have any, but morality is a universal concept. We need to embark on some sort of advocacy and campaign that emphasizes moral high standing, so that people can begin to share love, in the purest form. People can begin to act out of love, not out of vengeance. We didn't work out. Let's separate in an amicable way. The world never end. Don't bring all that rage into the solution or the court case and all that, and separate in a way that creates enmity and creates a difficult environment for the child to grow. Lastly, we need to be careful how we absorb civilization, especially for us Africans. We need to be literate about our absorption of civilization. I'll give you a typical example. I go out with a couple of friends, all of them white. We all have phones. They probably have better phones than I do. We go on the table. Nobody takes out their phone on the table. But the only people who are with their phone are my black brothers. They learned that phones are for communication, and they learn when to put it away. Do you understand? So they are literate about civilization. It is not just bestowed on them. Here, phones, they understand the necessity of the phone, rather than in Africa, where phone is a sign of class stratification. The phone you hold tells what class you are. Here, a beggar can own the latest phone. We need to be literate about our absorption. Another example will be, I use, for example, alcohol. It's surprising, but in America, if you're not 21 or is it 18 or I don't know how old it is, you can't buy beer. But for Cartier, for Cameroon, you don't even go mow your blocks, get a 2.5, you enter 14-year-old petit frère, enter any bar, dépenser d'eau. You understand? Because we are not literate about how we absorb this civilization. And because we are not literate about it, we are absorbing it in a way that is destroying instead of complementing our identities and our cultures. So when we hear that there is something called divorce, something called custody, something called child support, we should learn the essence of it, and then apply it like that. But because Africans, most of us, are more used to the idea of benefiting from the system. We come here, there are laws placed for this thing or that thing. We are trying to benefit from the system. So we have these laws that are meant to protect society, meant to protect children, meant to protect women and men, but we find that we are exploiting these strategies that have been put in place to better our lives. So we need to be literate about how we absorb civilization, bottom line. And I think that if we put all of this together on a good balance, and then add our personal will and desire to better ourselves as men, add our personal will and desire to ensure that if I am a better person, I should keep only a company of better people, like Tres Cator said. If everybody ensures that their circle is made of reasonable dads, then before you know it, the world will be running around with reasonable dads. I don't know what's going to happen with the women or the other part of society that strive on the existence of unreasonable dads. You know, but if we begin to create this network and begin to sharpen each other and look at the problem from a solution point of view, I think that we're going to create a wonderful society for everybody. We can't attain perfection, but we can strive. And if we strive and we recognize that we are striving, then we are encouraged to strive even harder. So that's, to me, let's just put in our best, be determined, and learn how we can better ourselves as dads, as potential dads, as sons. There are some sons who have dads who are not even worth writing home about. That doesn't give you the excuse to be delinquent. You know, you should also be able to learn what it is that you can pick up from your dad and replicate in your children's life, and what it is that you have to add value to replicate in your children's life, and create a just society, really.
Thank you so much. And that's very great. I'm really grateful for that. And obviously, we have so many things which we learned from our dads, from our parents. And when we look back now, there are certain things we wish we could have changed then, but because of our culture, sometimes we do not have the voice. How many of you could speak back, could talk back to your dads then? But sometimes you look at it now, you wish you could have said something, you wish you could have changed something. But unfortunately, we cannot change those things because they have already passed. But what is it that we can do from now onwards? Like Cham said, we can change, we strive to change. Yes, and there's going to be a change. It may take time, but we have to work towards that change to make a difference. And yes, our men, our fathers, our dads, our husbands, they do need support from us as well. So it's that, like Trescator said, it's a partnership. It's not, they're not in a relationship to be competitive, to be looking at who is better than the other, but trying to better the other person, trying to make sure the other person is happy by improving on himself and herself as well. And Dr. Ako, your last word will come in form of a question, which I remember something which Harry said, that when I cannot repeat the exact word, but I know he said that when a man is not mentally okay, or if you are not really well enough, you won't be able to take care of the family. If I'm right, Harry. And sometimes you need to take a break. Sometimes you can go away. Um, that going away, is it, how long can that going away be for? It's true. If you are not well mentally, be you the man or the woman, be you the father or the mother, if you are not mentally balanced or even physically, you cannot really function properly. And when you are not well, you cannot take care of the family properly as well. So what are some of the things that we can do from a medical point of view, or from a mental health point of view? How can you help yourself in order to help your children as a father? So when you answer that, then you round up with a final word as well.
Yes. The first thing I want to say, which I've not mentioned, in this very, instructive, progressive discourse, which has great potential for awareness, is we have to pray for our children. We have to pray for our children. I pray for my son, my family all the time. I do pray. I have a physical father, but I also have a spiritual father. When we talk about fatherhood, I would like to conclude with that. I look up to a God who protects me, and I am very confident that he got my back, and that is a fact. And I let my son know that he got my back. I let my son know I've been praying for you. So it implies that I create an awareness of a superior being in his life. I've been praying for you since when you were born. I've been praying for you all the time. So he knows that there is a father who prays for him, and that there's somebody up there who is above his father. and that is God, in the presence of Jesus Christ as well. So He's going to pass that down to His children. So let's pray for our children all the time, because I believe in the effectiveness and the power of prayer in addressing stuff that I cannot understand, that I cannot see. Now, that being said, I want to mention that it is just to wrap up. We parents need to be there for their children. We need to be there. They need us more than ever. We in the United States of America are busy people. We in Africa, everywhere. We have all this. We work Monday to Friday, and then sometimes Saturday included, sometimes Sunday included. It depends on your schedule. And then we have meetings, we have hangouts, we have friends, and then children with the social media and all that stuff. The whole dynamic has changed. It changes from what it could be elsewhere. But we need to spend that family time together, and we need to be involved in the lives of our children a lot. And that's just what I would say. It will help and forge a stronger society. Because I believe that a strong society is forged on strong family values, strong family norms, and strong family ethics. And I do believe that if we can enforce this, then we're going to be fine. And Stacey, thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you, Ivy left earlier on. Thank you, Chan. And thank you, Tres 14, for another very, 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 really great, time talking about the role of fathers in the lives of children. And I hope to see you all next time in the third part of this 4-part series.
Yeah, and before you go, Dr. Akpo, I know you have something cooking for the 3rd of July, and I would like you to mention something about it, because people are so eagerly waiting for it, and I can't wait. Please just mention something about it before you go.
Yeah. Yes. I've been on the front line. I've been on the front line for the fight against the COVID-19. I leave my house. I drive to Washington D.C. Throughout the pandemic, and there were times when I went out there. I would tell my wife, "It's well. We've been praying. I'm going to come back home safe." I have many colleagues, doctors, nurses, and those in the medical field who never made it. They died on the front line. So I wrote this song, Kolofata. I did this music video, Kolofata, which I'm dropping on the 3rd of July. It is about, the music video. I have a wife who is a nurse, and we went to Kolofata. You know where Kolofata is in Cameroon. I chose Kolofata in Cameroon because that is where it became famous all over the world, because a lot of people were killed by, in the Boko Haram. The fight against the Boko Haram, and it has left a lot of people without a home. I used that just to bring it to relevance again in the song. And then she went over there, and she never came back. She never came back because she died. She died on the front line and fighting against. So it's a love song, and that's the trailer which is out there. I'm dropping it on the 3rd of July. This is for all those who've lost loved ones during this pandemic, and I just want to say that I want the video expresses emotional pain that those who've lost close loved ones, experience. Is very tough, and just to say, it's a very tough time, and I'm honoring them. And I thank all those families whose loved ones have been lost in this pandemic. I really thank you for, I thank you for having such wonderful people. Yeah, they went out there to help, a suffering humanity, and they're not with us anymore. So Kolofata is built around this love story. 3rd of July, it's going to be on YouTube, the video and everything. So please spread, share, and show some love. That's a part of Dr. Akko Tabeta, who is an artist, who is a multi-award-winning Afrobeat artist. Another part of me, which thank God for.
Wow. Thank you so much. And we are so much looking forward to it. We are just rounding up, and
thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching, for sharing. I hope you've learned 1 or 2 things today. And our next edition is on Saturday. And just for a roundup, fathers have a crucial role to play in the cognitive, social, and emotional development of their children. An involved father is one who is engaged, who is available and who is responsible. He is sensitive and supportive, nurturing and affectionate, and comforting, and also accepting. Involved fathers are strongly attached to their children, and the keys to these are consistency, compassion, attention, and time. When fathers are able to provide all of the above, everyone in the family is sure to benefit, even the fathers themselves. So I just want to thank you so much, guys, for watching today, for sharing, and for being here. At the Sandy Show, we give a voice to those issues which most often are regarded as taboo topics. People feel uncomfortable talking about them. People feel ashamed to talk about these issues. And June is Men's Health Month, and we also celebrated Father's Day this June. So we thought of coming up with this edition, with this series, where we'll be looking at men's health and also the effect that this has on them, and also giving a voice to these issues and creating a space where everyone, men, women, children, are able to give a voice to these things, and they will be healed. They will be saving lives, and they will be changing lives as well. So stay tuned, guys. Stay blessed, and know that the Sandy Show is a non-judgmental platform. We talk about these issues to give them a voice, to raise awareness, to educate, to inspire, to give hope, and also to motivate. And then we look for solutions to some of the issues. Stay blessed. Take care. Have a good weekend. And it's AC. Love you always. Bye-bye.